What's going on, everyone? Let's talk about real estate investing mistake and avoiding the sunken cost.
You invested millions into a project that's clearly failing, but you keep pouring money in, right? That's the sunk cost fallacy.
Now, this is the thing I had issues with about real estate is people get into invested and then they get really emotional and attached to properties. Now, if it's your primary property, you live there, I can understand. But if it's a rental property or investment property, you have to only look at the numbers.
Typically they'll make about 20% profit on average. But nowadays, you never know. Quite frankly, it depends how good you buy. The art is in buying, whether it's multifamily, single family, the art is actually what you buy it for.
No matter if you made a right or wrong decision. Now, what's the sunken cost fallacy? Well, the sunken cost fallacy definitions on the screen, and the reason it happens is because people get emotional, people get attached, and people do not want to admit that they're wrong. I understand that it's really hard to admit you're wrong, and I'm gonna say it. I was wrong before about properties. I did all my due diligence, and I thought I made a good decision, started investing all this money in there, and then end up barely breaking even or losing a couple of $1,000 to $10,000 to $20,000 because how much money I put into a property. And this really affects people who flip houses. And why do I say this? Well, it affects real estate investing because you do not understand how easy is to lose a lot of money on real estate.
The number one thing that I learned from that first flip where I lost $30,000 is that I shouldn't have went into that without having a coach.
If you never have done a few flips. And here's the warning I'm telling you.
What's the most amount of money you've lost on a real estate deal?
On a single real estate deal, over 100 grand.
How did you lose that?
I think we've had it a cap in a couple of times. I think the big problem was buying luxury flips.
You have to go by a budget. No matter what you do in real estate, it's all about what you purchase it for. And then by the time you flip it, what can you get in return? And at the day you purchase real estate, and here's the thing I have to tell everyone, is that's how much you made on the return on the property. Because the house price is not going to jump dramatically in the next 12 months, 10 months. It takes a few years for the house price to go up. Now, yes, you can increase the value of the property. You can put, add an extra bedroom, add a bathroom, add more space for living, or open concept, all different things you can do to add value to the property. Now, here's the thing. Real estate is an example of a sunken cost fallacy because you can continue pour money into a property and that is not guaranteed return because of the housing market, because the interest rate, because something happened nearby and people don't want to live there, high crime rate. You have to look all this up. No matter how much money you pour into a property, if it's a bad area, no one's going to buy it. If the house is ugly when you bought it because you got it at a discount, at a steal, well, you're going to have to give that discount to the next people because it's harder to sell the house. And I ran into this issue with my warehouse. Now, yes, I made a little bit of money off of it, but at the end of the day, I sat on it for about 2 years and it barely went up. And by the time I sold the property and all the costs I put into it, all the renovation repairs I had to do to it, all the wear and tears I had to do to the house, I ended up breaking even. I did not walk away with a lot of money because the cost comes down to you because you had to pay the real estate agent. You had to pay all these extra things when you sell the house. So you had to factor that in. And holding on to a property does not necessarily mean that the house is going to sell better later because you already invested a lot of time in it and you might have loans. You might have, credit cards that you take for it. There's a lot of things you could occur while getting a rental property or investment property or a house you're trying to flip. This is why I say when you buy investment property, you need to take the emotion out of it and focus on what you need to do. And here's the thing, making unnecessary repairs or upgrade to the product because you don't want to admit that you are wrong. And this is the very first thing I gotta say. I was wrong on some of my properties. And it takes experience and time to understand that, yes, you can do well on properties and rental property, but it's a high risk and you really have to do a lot of your research. Now, let's talk about how to avoid these sunken cost fallacy. Now, here's the thing. I made these mistakes, so I'm hoping you don't make the same mistake. Be objectively evaluate your investment. Okay, I'm gonna put a picture of a house on the screen. And let's say this house needs $50,000 in renovation, and you think you can flip the house for about 350,000 range based off the research you did. So, will the house really sell for that range? We don't know. That's the gamble you are taking. And this is where the only thing you can control is tracking your expenses on the income. Because you can say, I'm going to buy this house and rent it out. And I need to drop XYZ to get it up to rental ready. Or you're going to go in there and say, okay, I'm going to flip this house. So now you have to track the expenses on the renovation. And you have to admit to it that it's $50,000. That's all I'm going to spend. If something goes bad, guess what you're going to have to do? You're going to have to give up some of the upgrades. That's just the honest truth. If you do not do that, you're going to put yourself in a worse situation, especially if it's a flip. Now, if it's a rental property, maybe not. But if it's a flip, yes, you're going to have to be steady with it. And make sure you always consult with a real estate professional. And this is the thing. I consult with a real estate professional, someone that's been in the game for 20 years, someone that's been there and helped me out. And yes, he is where I go to and ask, hey, what should I do in this situation? What do you expect? And what do you think we can rent out the place for? And he will look at the properties and give me the honest truth of the matter. Because whenever I look at it, I'm going to be biased on the higher end. Yeah. And if you're going to look at it, you're going to be biased on the higher end too, because you want to get the most return. And when you consult with the real estate professional, they can be like, to be honest with you, the last few properties that rented out that we got on the MLS shows that it rented out for this much. Now, I know Zillow said we can rent it out for $2,500. We can try. But the last property in the nearby that rented out only rented out for $2,100, and before that it was only $2,000, and this was in the last few months. So guess what? Zillow is way too high, because maybe you can get $2,500 because you have a super nice property, but most likely you will not, and it's only going to rent out for $2,000 or $1,900 if you need it to be rented out immediately. So that's why you have to consult with the real estate expert. Now, let's talk about the other thing, making a sound financial decision. Whenever you buy this property, you need to understand what is the goal and have a exit plan. Yes, what is your exit plan for, and what's your exit strategy? I always tell people I have 2 or 3 options whenever I buy a house that needs renovation. It's either I flip it or rent it, and I always buy it underneath the market value, because that is the only way to do real estate and make money. If you're paying full price for any real estate, it does not make sense, because it's an investment property. You can wait. You need to find those gems and make decisions based off of the value you find. Not, well, if I hold it for 5 years, it's going to go up by this percent. No, that's not the exit strategy. Your exit strategy is if I flip this house and have it done in 5 months, and I can sell it for this amount of money. Now, if it does not sell, will I still be able to either put it on a mortgage and rent it out and still make money? That's an exit strategy. You have a game plan A, a game plan B, and then you might have to have a game plan C on what you need to do, because maybe you did put too much money because you didn't do a proper investigation. And this is why I tell people always get a property inspection. And the second part of this is don't be afraid to cut your losses. Yes, holding on to a property just for the profit may not be your best choice, because at the end of the day, you need to look at how much it costs for you to keep the house, because maybe you had to keep the electric on, the plumbing, so you have to keep water going, you have to keep the gas going on the property so people can do inspections, people can test, because that's what it requires whenever you start trying to sell a house. Yes, you can cut off the electric and water, but before they even get the house to be sold, the inspector's going to want all that stuff on so they can test it. So either way, you're going to be at a cost. Or you did a really risky loan and you have high interest and you're losing more money a month holding on to the property. You need to learn to cut your costs. Maybe you don't make $10,000. Maybe you only make $2,000. And you want the extra $8,000, $20,000, $100,000. Well, you need to understand, longer you hold onto that property for a flip, and if you didn't cash that house, you're paying a second mortgage, and that's where you are losing money. Now, and the other thing about making a sound financial decision is focus on the future, not the past. Okay, you made a few mistakes. Okay, there's a few things that went bad on the house. The thing about it is you need to focus on what's up ahead. If things happen, fix it, get over it, and keep moving forward. Do not get emotional. Make financial decisions. And if, let's say, you need to rewire the whole property because you find out it's old, and to get it up to code, you need to rewire and re-drywall. It's going to come out to be about $15,000. Well, it happens. Well, guess what? You can't put the final finish that you want, the higher finish in. So you're going to have to be creative. You might have to go to get discount tiles. You might have to get, more organized and more streamlined for the property, because it doesn't take the top finish to make the house look nice. What takes the house look nice if you have great skills on house decor. So make sure you bring in your wife, because that's what I do. My wife will look at the budget and she goes, I need to stay within this budget. What can I do to get good tiles, good countertop, and good kitchenware or anything else to match so we can sell this house? And she'll do her research. Maybe don't buy a new fridge. Maybe you have to buy a used fridge to put in there. And these are the things you have to do to save yourself money. If you do not do this, guess what's going to happen? You're going to lose more money. And what's my final thought about the sunken cost fallacy? This is a common trap. Yes, it's a common trap I fell for. I got emotional. And at the end of the day, if it's an investment property, you need to stick to the numbers, because the numbers don't lie. If you buy the property, let's say for $200, you expect it to sell for $300, well, and you want to make $50,000, guess what? You're going to have to factor in how much it costs to keep the mortgage for the place while you're doing the renovation, and you're going to have to factor in how much renovation is going to cost. And if you run into a delay, guess what? Your profit's going to go down. So you have to be realistic. And every single time I break open a wall, I always find a problem that wasn't seen before. And that's what the honest truth. You can't get emotional. You need to do what you can and move forward. And it could lead to costly mistake in your real estate investment. I know people that would go and see, oh, I see the roof might need to be replaced. Instead of fixing a few tiles or a few roof shingles, they said, oh, well, so we'll just replace it and we're going to just pay $10,000. And they're wondering why they're not going to make money. I'm not saying be cheap on your renovation, but make sure you do your due diligence and don't waste money on things that you don't have to. If you can get away for replacing shingles and have that roof last another 5 years, that's good enough because you're there to make money, and that's the truth of it. And be aware of making sound decisions to protect your financial future. I have known people to flip a property and lose money when they flip the property. And it's just the honest truth. They put too much time into it, too much money into it, and they just had this big dream that it's going to cost. The housing prices can go up by 15% by the time they sell it. And since they have the upgraded information on there or upgraded stuff, it's going to do well. At the end of the day, you need to be aware of these decisions because I know people lose a lot of money on real estate due to the fact that they do not plan ahead or they did too much upgrade for the area they're in. So before you make any decision, make sure you talk to someone and like and subscribe to the video, and that's all I got for you.